Welcome back to This Week in Pennsylvania. I'm James Cromwell, and now I'm joined by Robert Gleason, former chair of the Pennsylvania Republican Party and former Secretary of Commonwealth, and former Auditor General Eugene DePasquale. Both have teamed up to call for changes to the charter school law. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on This Week in Pennsylvania. Eugene, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
Why do you believe there needs to be charter school reform?
Well, as the former Auditor General, we did a lot of audits of both traditional public schools and charter schools. And particularly on the cyber school, we found a lot of problems with the charter school law. I want to be clear about this. It's a problem with the charter school law that needs to be reformed so that we make sure more money is going to the classroom, helping kids, and making sure that we're protecting taxpayers and families. And that's something we find consistently across the board. And that was found in both our audits of the schools and our overall charter school report. There's a lot of common sense things that can be done here to fix the system while still maintaining choice in the system.
And Robert, I'm just curious, what made you two team up? Recently, you put out together an op-ed talking about this being a bipartisan deal. So how did this come about for you two?
Well, it's only recently that I became a member of the school board. I've always been involved with partisan politics, but I am not now. And I got elected to the Westmont Hilltop School District in Cambria County, Pennsylvania. And as you sit there for a couple years, you get to really understand what is going on as far as the school is concerned. And I became alarmed, as did our district, as the amount of money that we were spending on sending children to charter schools. And so I discussed this with the PSBA, the Pennsylvania School Board Association, and they are on top of this as well, of course. And they put me together with Gene, who has been involved with this because as Auditor General, he audited every school district in Pennsylvania, so he understands the statewide problem. What I understand is the local problem. And in my school district, we are going to spend this year almost $600,000 on sending 44 children to charter schools, and it's caused us to raise taxes by 3 mils. And I think that a lot of people don't really understand this cost. They don't understand what charter schools are. I'm like Gene, I'm for school choice, but the charter schools, cyber charter schools, have not been successful.
And Eugene, you talked about some of the audits that you've done on these types of schools. So with that being said, what types of changes do you propose?
I think the simplest thing you could do is look at the whole funding formula. Right now, you take like a cyber school, for example, you're spending the same amount of money per child as you're having in brick and mortar charter schools and also traditional public schools. One of the arguments for cyber charters was that you were going to actually hold down the cost. That's number one. Number two, I've said this, whether it be traditional public or on the charter school side of it, we've got to do a better job of holding the failing schools accountable. So right now in the cyber charter world, every single cyber charter school, the students are underperforming other students across the Commonwealth. Now, that's not every student, but overall as a school system, they are underperforming. We've got to find a way that if you're a failing charter school, and I'm all for holding traditional public schools accountable as well, but if you're a failing charter school, we've got to make sure that there's true accountability in that system.
And Robert, you talked about being part of a school board. Now, can you just explain for the average taxpayer that they are paying for public schools, but also these charter schools too, and how at a public school, that money is really a big problem when it comes to dishing that out to these charter schools?
Well, nobody has enough money, and school districts have to maintain athletic facilities, buildings, busing, all kind of things that we have to pay for. We send the same amount of money to a charter school who has none of those expenses. So for our school district, we spend $11,000 a year per student, and for special education students, we spend about double that amount of money. So when somebody goes off to a charter school, we need to send them the $11,000, yet they have none of the expenses that we do in managing the school. So that's really not fair. And as Gene said before, we need to make the funding mechanism fair. But the most important thing is that many of the people who attend these cyber charter schools are not achieving what they need to do. And this has been done by testing and evaluations, and they're really not getting the education that they really need. But the taxpayers, what they don't understand is the amount of money that we are sending to these cyber charter schools they are allowed to have surpluses that we're not allowed to have. And I think Gene can maybe explain that, but they can have almost twice as much money in the bank and not spend it. In other words, they are making a profit. We're not permitted to make a profit in a public school district.
And one thing I want to follow up on what Rob said there, they're allowed to also have these oversight management companies that don't exist in traditional public schools that are beyond the right to know law. So as auditor general, when I would audit a school district, I would know what the superintendent made, all the teachers, coaches, et cetera. You can see what the teachers make in a cyber charter school and the brick and mortar charter school. But when they have these management companies that are raking in millions of dollars, they are beyond the reach of the right to know law in the state. I believe that needs to change.
Okay, we're going to pause the conversation right there. We're going to sneak in a quick break, but don't go away. We're going to have more with our guests and our analysts when This Week in Pennsylvania comes right back.